Yeah, cool. So I'm Liam Falconer, I'm the Biosecurity Manager for Marlborough District Council. And normally we have Hayden Knott here, who's a Senior Biosecurity Officer that leads the Chilean needlegrass program. And also we have Brent over the back there, Brent, who's another Senior Biosecurity Officer as well. So a lot of our program over the summer period is engagement, and we're doing a lot of control assisting landowners to keep on top of populations currently. Apart from the really heavily affected area that Tim sort of talked about earlier, which is a containment area where the landowners have to do boundary control, and some of you guys as well, Constellation, be familiar with those. So over the Christmas, sort of that summer period, contractors, which many of them are, pretty much all of them are in the room here actually, and yeah, thanks for the work that you guys do, delivered just over 2,000 hours worth of control work across the region, which is pretty significant. It's delivered across 220 odd properties. So there's a lot of coordination. There's a lot of work for the contractors to engage with that many people. It's actually a massive job when you think about talking to that many people, and sometimes you need to talk to 3 people on one property to gain access. So I really appreciate the work that you guys do there. The distribution, so it's slightly increases every year. 0.5% last year, which doesn't sound like much, but it's sort of, I think it's 10-15 hectares per year, which when you start thinking about that, it's quite significant. So yeah, the total distribution that we have mapped, and we're certain there'll be more out there as well, is 2,626 hectares, which is, it's significant, but when you look at the region as a whole, is still right at the early and beta stage. I think there's something like 70 or 80,000 hectares of Marlborough that it could affect, and then if you look at Canterbury, it's probably 5 times that amount. So and this is what we keep hearing often from people is, why do you bother? Like, it's everywhere, and yeah, that's right. It's just on 246 properties now. However, still right at the start in terms of where it could be. So that's the message we really need to keep pushing to some of you that will have staff that have vehicles going in and out of properties, keeping them clean, because there's much more to lose, basically. This is a recent find here on the screen, but this is a patch of Chilean needlegrass. This is the most southern patch that we know of in Marlborough. This is very close to the southern border of Marlborough, actually close to the Environment-Canterbury boundary. It was found this summer, by one of the Marfalls Beach locals who was sitting there in roadworks at the stop sign and located it. So real good example of how it's moving around. So this would have come off mud off a ute or vehicle. So when you're driving in and out of these properties, you pick up the mud, gets transported around the district really quickly. Clear examples all the way from here on State Highway 1 north right to the most recent one was on the Welds Pass 2 years ago. It's found on all the outside of the corners, all down the zigzags. So take note, essentially. That's how it's getting around at the moment. This is the distribution map. There's a lot of thought that it's just a Seddon issue, but as you can see, it goes right up into Picton, Councillor Moynihan found, up to the Y, right up the Waira Valley, a few little spots in between, and then this is the Ewer site I was talking about, and punches up the Albert Tree to about the Jordan Bridge there as well. It's starting to push into the urban areas. There's a site on the corner of Hospital Road, right by the hospital, once again off a vehicle. And then there's a few little satellite spots in Spring Creek. I think that's been there for 50, 60 plus years from memory. And you can see it's really starting to invade this dry northern faces through the Wither Hills and Vernon area just recently starting emerging in the Waihope. And I know the people up there are pretty gutted that it's starting to push into there. So that gives you a fairly good idea of what's happening. But as I said, it's 2,600 hectares, but there's much more to lose. So Jim covered this really well, and I just recognise the effort that NZ Wine biosecurity team put into this as well. It's having the same messaging, and the engagement from Jim as well, and the program is excellent. We're all small teams, and to working together is it's the way to go in a small district. So as we talked about, it's about protecting your property, and for those that have it, is not spreading it to other properties. So keeping clean, playing by the rules when you're moving your stock. I think this, some of you probably know the history of this photo. No, that's a new one to you. Yeah.
There's more than that.
Yeah. And you can see, maybe some of you, this massive seed ball. So that was one that Tim picked up off the top of a mower in a vineyard. Tens of thousands, probably hundreds of thousands of seed there. Occasionally we drive down the road and you find little bits of them, these little balls where they've dropped off the mowers. It's really creating awareness of your staff. If you've got staff working in vineyards mowing, and thinking about what's going to happen when you drive between properties and the likes. I know the community down here in Parks are pretty quickly to jump on it, and we appreciate their community approach. However, there's a lot of gaps in terms of the pathway management, and that's really the biggest challenge and risk with the program at the moment. And as you can see, $1.1 billion threat to New Zealand. It's significant to the agricultural sector. It's not going away anytime soon. And we all have to work together to slow the spread, basically. Let's see what else he's got here. I'll just add as well, with the stock movement, you have to be really aware that Marlborough is pretty much, I'm going to call it the home of needle grass. We have by far the most. I think we've got ECAN on the meeting as well. We've got Tasman Council there. Hawke's Bay Council's online as well. There's a real concern from a lot of areas, especially down the east coast, right down to Otago, of us exporting it. It's been exported to Auckland before, where they have a small population up there as well, through stock. So it's just something we need to be really aware of. And there is a risk that if you send stock affected by Chilean needlegrass, it will get sent back by these other councils. So you just need to be aware of that. If you're moving stock, that there's rules in place and you need to adhere to them. And of course, if animal welfare becomes an issue, severe drought or something like that, best to engage with Hayden, and we can talk some options through with you. We've got a little update here on Nasella tussock. So a bit of a summary of the program that we delivered last year. There are 385. Last year there was 385 properties that were on that are on control programs for Nassella tussock. So quite often there's a bit of crossover between Nassella tussock properties and Chilean needlegrass properties. But at the moment, more affected by Nassella tussock. Out of those 385, our team made it to 335 to undertake inspections, which is 87% of those properties. And I'd have to say that across the board, there's really high compliance. So really, thankful for those of you that invest, and thank you to those contractors as well that do an excellent job. What we have found though in the last last few months, our team have been out doing some surveillance of areas where we've known Nasella to be, but it's been in low densities. But in some of these places, because they haven't had control programs for a number of years, there's some emerging issues. So we're now up to sort of 400 odd active properties under a control program this year. So there's a bit of an increase. So I guess that's about being aware, even if you don't have a control program, you need to keep an eye on them and understand what's happening around you. And if you're seeing something unusual, try and figure out what it is. And you can use AI now to identify what these things are. So if you're on a farm, vineyard, whatever it might be, there's a lot of apps now that can identify weeds and insects and all sorts of stuff. So you can pretty quickly decide what it is, and it will often send you to a link, and you can have a good look about what it's about.